Welcome to another episode of Feed the Trolls, and I bet you didn't see this one coming in 2024. I got Thorin and Bubzkji together to talk about Danish Counter-Strike. Of course, it is the topic that everyone was talking about last week. It's the topic that everyone wants to keep talking about. cadiaN is now the IGL of Astralis. There's lots to unpack here. There's lots of history that we need to go through.
That's why, though, we're doing this episode, if people don't know. Because I realised, I had an epiphany the other day. I thought, you know what? If Stavn Jabbi and cadiaN can play together, and in Astralis of all places, then me and Bubzkji can analyse CS, surely. You know what? Maybe we can just heal the world one podcast and one roster move at a time.
Yeah, I mean, there's endless possibilities, right? If they can play together, we can play together for some reason. I mean, maybe it's only going to be short term like them, but hopefully we're going to be sticking around for a little bit longer.
And also, to be fair, because I feel like a lot of people are hating on this move, I thought to myself, if we need to draft someone in to find the positives about why a move for Astralis could work, I think you're the only game in town, mate. I think it has to be you. You were the obvious first call on the Rolodex.
Yeah, I remember like Sam reached out to me and she asked me, okay, I need you to be the kind of positive beam in our atmosphere, right? But I'm not going to be that guy. I'm also kind of skeptical. Okay. So I'm just going to be a little bit scared.
This really is all possibilities. Holy moly. What is 2024? Okay, simulation.
But let's see.
Okay. Look what cadiaN has done for us. He's brought Bubzkji and Thorin together, and now Bubzkji's found his inner Thorin as well, and he doesn't even want to be positive about Astralis. What is happening? Let's go back to that announcement, though. Bubzkji, I mean, when you heard the news that cadiaN was going to Astralis, what was your first reaction?
I mean, I knew a little bit before. I wasn't supposed to do the fall finals, but all of a sudden the manager of Blast hits me up on a Thursday, like, hey, can you come?
As in it would have been cadiaN before you were playing, right?
I kind of knew a little bit before, so I realized at that point, but I think I was pretty surprised when I got that message. I didn't really expect it to come in my DMs, but I think cadiaN and Stavn and the way it ended, I don't think I would have ever seen them come back such a short term after, because it's only like, 6 months ago or something?
It is, I think it's about 6 months ago, and if you don't know, because you've been living under a rock, there was a team called Heroic who was in almost every final. We didn't see them lift trophies very often, but for the most part, this was a team that was problematic to everyone. They looked like this band of brothers. They were always releasing content about how together they were, and it was like these incredibly motivational speeches. And then all of a sudden, Heroic announces that cadiaN is out. But then it follows up with another announcement where basically Jabbi and Stavn had kind of said that they would only stay if cadiaN was gone, but now that cadiaN's gone, they're not staying. And it became the Stabbi joke, and it was like a soap opera or a field of teenage girls all over social media, and that was the Heroic breakup. But I mean, Thorin, for you, I posed this question to Bubzkji. I'll ask you as well. What did you think when you heard cadiaN to Astralis?
I mean, I'm actually very interested because I know Bubzkji knows some of these players to know what he actually thinks, like what he can say. Because I have to say, this is a move that's completely out of left field for me. Like normally, when a move like this is going down, you get like some inkling through like the spider web of the network. There was none whatsoever for this at all. Like, actually, it's funny that apparently he only guessed it based on like the hiring for Blast or whatever. Because like, actually, I was going to say the opposite if someone asked me at the beginning when there was the first rumors there was problems in Team Liquid. I already heard that they were looking for like other in-game leaders. I mentioned some big names in the past. Also, people were talking like maybe cadiaN could go elsewhere. But actually, I'd heard in the scene that there's teams out there didn't even want him. Some of the smaller teams in Astralis, by the way, and that maybe he was sort of on the outs and he wasn't going to get a spot. So, I mean, first of all, I actually had no idea Astralis will make a player change, because this is also where media, unfortunately, it's hard to know whether people are saying what they want to be true, what is true, or what they wish was true, if you know what I mean. Because remember, Device did go out of his way in all those interviews, not just to be like, hey, I'll give it a go being IGL. He was sort of like, I've been thinking about this for years. And like, I think this is like my new role. Like, you know what? This is like, it's for real though. And like, the problem is when someone says all that, you assume they're at least going to do it for a year or two, not just bail after like 5-6 months or something. And not even that. It's not even like it was terrible. Look, if we want to address the last Astralis, it wasn't as good as they hoped it clearly would be. And it never reached the heights of this move, the original move of bringing Stavn and Jabbi in, where they were going to make a super team on paper. It never got to those heights, but it also wasn't bad. They were pretty much always a playoff team, except this EPL, basically. So I found it kind of a bit wild, actually. And also, the other things, why I'm actually quite interested to know what he thinks about this is, to me, it's even implied if you look at the way all the people's statements come out, it actually doesn't seem like what fans think it is. Fans think that actually this is some crazy drama, like out of a soap opera, like a teen drama, like you're saying. They think it's that like Stavn himself was like, there's only one thing left to do. We've got to call cadiaN. Like, bro, I'm sorry, but what? Whereas actually, if you look at their comments, it almost looks like actually maybe that wasn't even the person who made the decision, and he just sort of agreed at the end, like, okay, we can do it then. All right, you can join. So I almost feel like there's even like maybe a tiny bit of tension there, nothing big, but it's implied to me maybe it isn't all just great like it used to be. You know, I don't know. I'm kind of interested on this. I think, like you say, I think there's actually a lot more to discuss on this, and people realize it's not simple. I don't think.
From my understanding, back in the days, it wasn't like there was a huge fight between cadiaN and Stavn and those guys.
Okay.
I think they returned from Rio, if I remember something along those lines. And I think cadiaN wanted change. I think he was fed up of not winning anything. You're so close always. They went into the second place, semifinals, the major hurt, right? All these issues. And he wanted change. But I felt the rest of the team was kind of turning against him because they felt like his ways were becoming a little bit too maybe unstructured or a little bit too pressurized, like he wasn't the same leader that he was in the start. And I think that kind of made the whole team turn against him and just said, hey, we're not going to play for you anymore. I mean, he didn't want to resign, and then obviously he got removed, and then Stavn Jabbi didn't want to resign either, and they got shipped off to Astralis. But yeah, everybody lost in the end. Heroic is a miserable place right now. Astralis is nowhere near the top, if you ask me, and then you also see cadiaN, who's been struggling in a liquid, who's doing better than for the last 2-3 years.
By the way, obviously, look, you have to be careful what you can say, but like, what do you think on that aspect I said at the end there? Like, does this actually seem like a move? Like, do you think Stavn's actually any of the motivating factor behind this move? Is he just a side factor? What do you think?
I think Stavn Jabbi is the main move why this happens, right? I think they thought that they were the main stars of the team. They could go out and win without him. They realized, okay, this is dog shit. We actually need to change something. Right. And then they realized, okay, who was the winning puzzle of when we were winning? Maybe let's bring cadiaN back. Surely they had other talks with like maybe HooXi, Brett from Sky. I don't know who they talked with, right? I think HooXi is the big name out there.
Yeah.
But I think the only reason why cadiaN gets in above a guy like HooXi is because Stavn Jabbi can say, oh, yeah, this guy's cool. He knows his stuff. And I feel like HooXi just got fucked over by that.
Would you have put HooXi in there, Bubzkji? If you had to change the pieces, would that have been the move for you?
The thing that worries me is that cadiaN is such a lunatic when he plays sometimes, right? He just runs through a smoke and feels like he has to get a timing, especially on the T side. But now you're going to be trusting this guy in a 12-12 round, and he's going to be playing B side of Mirage, and he's going to play an anchor role where he's going to be playing a shush/type Tessus scenario, and he's just not going to be able to do that, especially in the first time of period. So I'm not sure, like, is this a long-term play for cadiaN to like transfer into this anchor player, or is it just to kick the next guy and then maybe he can take over some more aggressive role? And that's the issue for me with Astralis, right? They constantly experiment with their lineup. Like, they never find a certain chord that they want to work with. I think HooXi in this lineup, they at least had the roles fit in, right? I think HooXi could have played those anchor roles, but now they've just had the experiment with Bro, and holy shit, he also got fucked up, almost like me back in the day. He got into this experiment of being like, oh yeah, Device IGL, you're gonna be doing this for years, bro. Come in, we have a loads of firepower, bro. You're gonna be that solid anchor. And then Device, after like 4 or 5 months, nah, I'm not gonna do this anymore. And then Bro obviously is the first guy to get cut. Unfortunate scenario for him, but they had the chance now to actually reset. And I feel this lies in the management, right? I feel like I assume it's Kasper Straub at this point, but I feel like
seems likely, yeah.
I think so, right? And I think he just trusts the players way too much, right? They had that disaster at the Amar with Blame F. They realized, okay, Blame F needs to go away. If your first thought is that, okay, we're just gonna make Device IGL, you're already in a bad spot, right?
Sure.
Knowing Device, he's a little bit of an emotional guy. He's your best player on paper. He needs to be the star player of the team. Of course, you're not gonna make him IGL long term. But they put out these huge statements that like, oh, this is the future, this is what we're going to be doing, all these sort of things, right? Okay, again, now you have the chance to reset once again. You can bring in HooXi, now you can have on a paper solid roster. But again, they go with this experimental route of like trying an IGL as like a rifler who can now play anchor. And for me, it just seems like there's no definition of what Astralis wants to do, specifically when it comes to the management side.
I mean, Thorin, everything he said there is bang on how I kind
it's
of
pretty
feel
good,
about
isn't it? I think we swapped notes before this episode. I've got the one actually, Astralis is like a top org. They've got ties to the government. They're doing really great things for the Danish. No, whatever. No, the thing is, I sort of agree, because the weirdest thing about this move that no one's discussing is this just shows how the big shock of like the drama of the Stabbi and that aspect is what everyone's obsessed about. Because here's what no one's talking about. This actually implies that Device and all the others were like, maybe you shouldn't IGL, or maybe I don't want to do it anymore. So he really did just bail after like 6 months, which also makes me question what I also thought when he initially said he was going to be IGL, which is why Alan Ferd, they said, did that big press tour where he said it all. I don't think he ever actually wanted to be IGL in the first place. Spoiler, right? If he did, then why would you even make this lineup in the first place? Why don't you kick Blame F from day one? Or even better, crazy idea, don't kick Blame F, just have him be the bloody lurker and then Device be the IGL in that lineup. But notice they didn't do that. What they did is, when a really high profile team failed that cost millions of dollars, they made a pivot that actually was a genius pivot, by the way, because first of all, not only was Device actually all right at IGLing, but because he's Device, he gets an extra pass we don't give to other people when they try a role they haven't done before. It's a bit like, I'll give you the analogy, it's a bit like when Taz became a coach. Look, he'd never coached before, so we have no reason to think he'd be good, but it's Taz, you have to give him 6 months. You can't flame him right out of the gate, because what if he can do it? He's brilliant, isn't he? He's one of the greatest players of all time. So I feel like this whole thing also implies, I don't think Device ever actually sat down and said, I would like to be the IGL. It's more like they were in a tough spot, and he was like, either they said, can you do it? Which is what apparently they said to Blame F, or he just said, I can do it if I need to, or something. But it implies to me that I don't think they were ever all in on that. I think basically they had to win tournaments to make it justified. And I think at the end, this is the other thing I did predict when Device took that role, was like, bro, it's all going to seem great at the beginning when you win or things are exciting, but it's when you've done that like fourth tournament in a row where you've lost early and you're having all those shit times and your map pool's gone and then people aren't doing what they want on the T side. That's when you just go, why am I doing this? I'm Device, bro, and I'm the AWPer. Like, just get someone else in. I just want to get back to shooting people with the crosshair. Like, why am I doing this?
I think the reason with the Blame F thing, I think it's a good point. I mean, from my understanding, the Armad, they were so fed up with the way Blame F played that they just cut him at the spot, from my understanding.
Oh,
like
wow.
Right.
I
think they were just like so frustrated.
That's wild. Right, there's your bus fare. See you.
Exactly, bro. We're going with Ryan.
Holy shit. Right,
but from my understanding, I think Blame F, the best analogy I can throw about him is that he's that guy when you do like a schoolyard play, like play a game of soccer. He's going to be the striker who's never going to run back and do any defending, right? And that's the issue for them. In Denmark, we have this kind of socialism kind of thing. Everybody works together to push the team forward. And I don't think Blame F kind of fitted into that role. And so they had to force kick him, right? And then they look at their options back then, and it was like Bird from Sky, maybe Patty or some shit. And I think just Device was like, I'm not going to play with these fucking goons. I'll just take it up myself. But surely over time, he's realizing this is a much bigger task than I've ever thought it would be, especially also when you have a new roster in the form of Jabbi and Stavn, who's not really hitting their A game either, right? So it was just a forced move, but I would have loved for them to back in the day just realize, okay, we need an IGL, just get some random guy. If he's trash, we'll just replace him once we get a better one. Because now I don't know what works with the roster. Like I can't tell you. I can't tell you what works and what doesn't work, and that's the issue, right? So once they have to do roster changes again, who's up next? Is it just there?
No, by the way, that's even something I would quickly say, which is that's why I also don't get why it's cadiaN, not HooXi. The HooXi one just seemed obvious to everyone, not least because if people don't remember, I think a lot of people are only going to remember CS2. HooXi's proven himself with both styles of calling. Back in Copenhagen Flames, he was doing like a proper tactical style, and then in G2, he quite clearly let all of his star players do what they wanted and let the loose style. So I feel like, first of all, he's actually shown he could fit any whatever type of team this is. Whereas actually, I'm sure we're going to get to it soon, but that's why I'm interested as to why Bubzkji's actually kind of a bit skeptical, because I have to say, to me, the things I've heard about cadiaN in Heroic and Team Liquid make it imply he's going to be terrible for this team. So we'll get to that when we get to it, Sam. But you dial that up when you need to.
This was my thing is for me, because this was done so quietly, because there was lots of people online. I mean, there was a blast clip when cadiaN was on the desk with me that got pushed around and people said, oh, look, he knew then. Nah, no one knew then. I'm telling you, this was like, to me, this felt like a very last minute. I think that there was all those articles that came out about how the deal was done in 36 hours. It kind of
also the thing like with the blast registration implies they didn't really know it was going to be done as well. Like, I actually get the feeling you would just do it a week earlier and make that all by the book if you knew you were going to do it. This actually does almost imply, like you're saying, someone picked up the phone and 2 days later he was in the team. Yeah,
that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah, and this is what assumes that I had talked with HooXi, right? Because I assume once they got back from Pro League, Device is calling up Kasper Stauber or whoever he calls, right, and says, hey bro, I'm done with this shit, find a new guy. And they have a team talk, and they probably talk candidates, and they have these guys, right? And all of a sudden Stavn Jabbi maybe is just like, what about cadiaN? And then they kind of realize he's also an option, and then it happens within 36 hours. Surely they had talked with somebody else.
That there has to have been someone else, because for me it was just done too quickly, and it did feel like a panic move, I have to be honest, because it also, I mean, I'm gonna say it, I don't understand the move of getting rid of Bro and then putting cadiaN in there and now changing roles in the team. I know people can say what they want about Bro. I thought he was doing I think he did his job in Astralis, and I just think now what you're putting in someone who's going to be in the IGL, but also a rifler, and he's not very good. Sorry, cadiaN. But also you're going to make other members of your team change roles as well. At Bubzkji, it just feels to me like this was a panic. Like that's it, almost like we have to fix something. Let's throw this against the wall and hope it sticks.
I think this is why I think Stavn Jabbi is probably panicking a little bit inside the team, because they're so average right now, and they feel like we were so good back then. We need to do something to get our levels back to what it used to be, right? And they just thought, okay, cadiaN is going to be our savior for now. And I think this is the issue for Bro, right? Whatever he would have done, he would have been he had to play so good in order for Astralis to justify throwing a $2 million investment out the window, right? If they would have to kick Jabbi and Stavn, that's never going to happen. So regardless of how well he played, it didn't really even matter. I do think Bro was a little nervous at times. I'm not sure if you guys saw some of the clips, like he was shaking in some really crucial moments. And I do also think this is not what Astralis needs right now. Like, they need some stability, right? And they are a team who is running into playoffs. And when they do get those chances into playoffs, they kind of need to hit a certain level. I think he was actually one of the players who improved over time a little bit, but it just happened a little bit too slowly.
I actually think that's the worst part about this deal. It's actually another reason, by the way, both Device and cadiaN. Another reason why I think AWP IGL is not it is because if one of you decides to stay in the team and not do one of the roles, it fucks up the whole team. Now you have to like recruit 2 people basically. So that means someone who didn't do anything wrong gets kicked. Like the worst thing about this team, it's why I sort of agree with Bubzkji. This does look more like an old school, like players decided it, not the org. It's not like someone came to them and said, hey, we're signing this player, you know. Because if you look at it, right, the reason this is a player move is like the only org side is the side he said there, which is if you sign the players for 2 million. You're not going to give up on it within 1 year and go, oh, just throw that in the bin then, especially because remember, they haven't made any of the majors. They haven't got all the millions back from the stickers. So you kind of have to just sit on that roster and hope it works. But also, that is the problem right there. No one ever, who actually was an analyst was looking at this team going, you know, the problem with this team, of course, is Bro and staehr. They're not good enough, are they? They're not doing their roles. I'm pretty sure everyone said the opposite. Like, actually, Bro, by the way, would be the easiest player to want cut. He wasn't even a famous player before. He doesn't have good stats. I haven't heard any analysts ask for this guy to be cut because he obviously played shit roles in the team. By the way, I think him and staehr both look like they did their job. The problem, if you want the analogy, is this was a football team where you have like boring, not as famous, like defensive midfielder and like winger in this case. And then what happened is your star strikers didn't score. And so we fire the winger and the fucking defensive midfielder. Except in this analogy, it's even worse. We fired the defensive midfielder and put the left winger in his spot and go, right, there you go, staehr. Your turn next. Because as you say, Bubzkji, the stupidest thing about this is the most obvious consequence if they don't want to then kick cadiaN or Jabbi and Stavn still is now staehr, who's not going to be playing his roles, gets put in the bad spot. And then when he looks bad, you go, that's why we didn't work now. And then you don't have to do another change. Because that's what I do hate about this move. It's like, this is where if you are Stabbi, if you are Jabbi and Stavn, you have to understand, I think this is your last chance. Because if you fuck this lineup up, it was you, bro. Like, you actually screwed 2 other people out their jobs, so you better deliver now. You got what you asked for, which is cadiaN. I don't know why you asked for that. That's some fucking, you know, be careful what you wish for with the genie shit. It might come back to haunt you, but you got your second life, so you better make use of, well, third life in this case. You filled the super team. The second one was all right, and you died at the end of it. And now thirdly, you're risking other people. So I hope for their sake this works out, because they're playing God with like 4 or 5 different people's careers. As you said, 2 different orgs. Both orgs are with us when they made this move. And then lastly, millions and millions of dollars. Like, this is crazy what players can influence in this scene.
The problem is also the management side from my sake, right? I think they had finally a chance to do the reset now, and then we could build out from that, and then we could start, oh, okay, Jabbi is not good enough because now he's in a system and it doesn't really work, right?
Right.
And this is where it just continues to be like a spiral that they never get out of if they keep continuing like this. I can't see them picking up anybody else. I think they've tried every phone number in Denmark of players that's available, right? I think the only one who's maybe missing at this point is Matches. He could have been the savior of Astralis if he's able to join, but he's probably getting a mega bag in Falcons. And I think people forget about this Astralis roster. They quit the League of Legends team. They quit FIFA. They are all in on this project to make it worth it and to make it actually happen, and they've just gotten zero out of it, right? They spent those $2 million on Jabbi. I'm not sure what they were cost, maybe $2 million, 1.5. I don't care.
Sure.
But I think the result in the end is what that they expected. Oh, now we can just spend these money, and then surely we're just gonna make top 5, top 6 all the time, and then we're gonna be good. I just don't see any vision, and that's the issue for me, right? I don't see any long term because Device is not going to be playing for another 5 years either, right? Yep. So who's going to be replacing that guy? I do think Astralis by this move is actually forcing themselves a little bit to go international at some point if they don't, if there's not any like hyper aggressive AWPer coming through the scene at some point.
By the way, there's another thing people aren't thinking about. cadiaN, like Device, is 29 years old. Like, this isn't like the team of the future. This is like maybe the team of the past, if the team of the present. Like, first of all, that has to work. And then also, that's the why at the end of it all. I actually think if we'd made all these same arguments, but at the end, the point was, but that's why HooXi had to come in and put structure. That would make sense. The answer at the end isn't like, so that's why we're bringing cadiaN. And like, what? Where did you get that name from? Because the worst thing is, that's why I was wondering, actually, what people think about the end of Heroic. Because I get the same vibe from Heroic. If you look at the online era, when they became really good, it looked like actually they were all vibing at the same time. They had the style of play, it was all working. But as they were already that team that was a contender in all the semis and all the finals, that's when cadiaN's media presence went completely supernova. I've made this point before, but you have to be from outside of CS to know this. I don't think fans know that clutch that he won against Gambit online, even though to us it's like we make it a meme that people say that's the best clutch ever. Guys, remember, because the whole world was online and CS is like a crossover esport, I'm not trolling you. There are people who think cadiaN is like Kenny S or something, bro, who think because his name became bigger than CS, he became like a massive figure from all the banter and all the memes and all that. So actually, if you don't know, in a way, like cadiaN's media profile is way bigger than he is as a star player. Like he's not actually like the best AWPer, but he had this crazy profile. So it feels like some of that did go to his head. Because I'll just tell you, Bubzkji, the people I knew inside Team Liquid were telling me bonkers stories, bro. As in stuff like actual like nightmare fuel shit where you join a team and like the guy, if you join a pickup and one guy's trying to like call everything from spawn, and they made it sound like that being a pro team, and they even said, mate, that he wasn't even working for like a playbook. It's like you could go, well, can I see what we're doing? He's like, no, just listen to me. Like, we're going to do this, and I'm going to make all the calls. It's like, it sounds like some crazy dictatorship. So I also can't believe, I just refuse to believe Device is just going to chill while someone does that. So it makes me wonder, is it not going to be cadiaN calling like he does? Is he going to do that and everyone's just going to accept it? I think this sounds like a powder keg, mate. Could blow up any minute.
There's going to be a lot of feedback sessions, that's for sure. I mean, it's not going to be from the get-go. I think it's going to be a success. But I think cadiaN demands a lot of proactivity from his teammates. I think he demands that everybody is able to actually chime in and take initiative and actually call within. And I think in that Liquid squad, you kind of have players who's more like, oh, I do default, now tell me what to do. While in Heroic, he just had Jabbi and Stavn who were just saying, oh, I have a timing, come here, guys, we go long and then we do A-split, right? Like those moments, and it looked so beautiful, especially on T-sides at certain periods, because they would like rotate the entire map within seconds. But in English, and if people are not on the same page, it will just take like 10 seconds to figure that out, and then you already lost the timing, right? And I don't think Yekindar is even remotely close to what you're going to be getting in Stavn. It was set up to fail, right? And I also think Skulls was hopeless. Not going to be too harsh on him, but on his lurk situations, generally, he was just useless. I think it's very nice to see him come back into Fury and being a little bit more relevant. But he also got screwed over by having a lurker who didn't do anything.
So there's a CS newsletter that goes out, and I loved how they did this whole introduction. It's TLDR, if you don't get it, go check it out. But they started by saying the best relationship advice that you should ever take is when you go through a breakup, in the moment of that breakup, when you're feeling the heartache, where it really hurts, you need to write down all the things that you didn't like about your ex-partner, all the things that they did. Because over time, you forget the bad and you only remember the good. And then they proceeded to announce that cadiaN was going to Astralis, and it was really well done. But this is my concern with the team, is there was a problem in Heroic. People were unhappy. Bubzkji, you've said it yourself. How long before they go, oh, hold on, I remember. That's what I didn't like about that guy.
Yeah.
Surely that's going to happen as well, because they can say what they want. I do not believe that they've fixed that situation at all.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I wouldn't there be time. Yeah.
There's a huge difference though. Like back in Heroic, it was cadiaN's team. Now he's coming in and he has to prove himself to be like the leader of his team, right? Device is not going to be dealing with bullshit if he's going to be come in and be like a little bit arrogant and being a little bit too decisive on how they do certain things. I think they have their structures and cadiaN just have to apply to those, right? He simply have to plug and play. And I think cadiaN has to implement his style over time. The same way he did it with the Heroic. He gained their trust. I think it's going to take quite a bit of time for this roster to actually work, just on paper. I do think it's going to be better than before, because before it was literally one of the worst T sides in top 10 of Counter-Strike, right? So hopefully it can only get better, but I'm more worried about the CT side.
But you say it's going to take time. I mean, Thorin, they did this move so quickly. I don't think this is about time. I think this is about, oh shit, we need to make a proper major run. We need sticker money. We've got to do something drastic here.
That's also the silliest thing about this move. If you make this move, like, remember, this isn't even after a player break. You don't even get, like, the best thing about the player break now is you get 2 tournaments. You get blast groups, which don't even have a LAN final until you get to later. And you can, by the way, you can fail it like FaZe and just go through the online qualifier too. So that's even like the best possible, like, sort of like almost practice games because they're officials, but they don't really matter that much. And then also you get your Pro League where you get 1 million matches. Why would you do it after those 2 tournaments? Like, those are the 2 tournaments where it's like acceptable to fail. So instead, I actually agree with you, Sam. They've set it up now so that, first of all, their literal first ever match, when, if this is true, they'll have had like a week top practice, is right on home soil in their home arena where everyone wants you to succeed. But if you don't, it's going to be like the meme of being a library, isn't it? It's going to be terrible if you fuck that up. So already, if, like, by the way, God forbid you don't make it to the arena, that you come fourth in your group, like, that is already going to be so bad if you do. And then secondly, we're so close to the major. If you either don't make it, let's not even consider that, because again, that'll be drama central. But what if you make it and just bomb out last place? Like, I feel like you haven't given yourself sort of a lot of like room to fail here. I feel like you pretty much have to hit the ground running, and especially because of the former drama angle. Even if there is no drama in the team, everyone is going to be waiting. It's going to be like that meme of that guy with the stick going, go on, do something. But like that with like Stabbi, go on, get annoyed at cadiaN. Like, that's what everyone's going to be feeling like the second. And by the way, if you thought it was bad in Na'Vi when Simple was there, we all knew he was wrecking whoever the 5th player was. It's going to be like that. People are going to be like looking at those player cams, studying it like the Zapruder film for like any hint of like a facial expression. And like, oh, no, they're annoyed at him. They don't like, he's arguing with him. Like, everyone's going to be so all over the drama of this. So they also better like walk that tightrope of having no drama in the team or no edge. And also, as an aside, one other thing I feel like is going to be very interesting about this is, remember, when they made that lineup originally in Heroic, they weren't a top team. They didn't have the crazy expectations. So I also feel like the vibe could be very different when they were on the way up. If you think about it, one of the things about cadiaN that I suspect is why he's had these problems with these teams is, on the one hand, he can be really silly and goofy, which some people don't vibe with, by the way. I can tell you, I don't know if Device vibes with that. I get the get right vibe from Device, where it's like, I want you to be fucking serious. We're professional sportsmen. We can have a laugh afterwards, or we can laugh in like an arrogant way because we're winning too easily or something. But we're not having like a silly gag like it's 4chan or something. And then secondly, on the one hand, he has that, but I've also heard when he argues, like you're saying in the feedback session, I've heard he just argues like a little kid, and he can like never get him to say he's wrong. He's always right. Defend it. Again, I don't know if that's going to work, because when I think of Astralis, actually, if I want to put the best things about the org, it was the idea of being like a real sports team with Zonic and the sessions and respect and, you know, like space and communication. You can be like harsh, but you do it in a professional manner. I feel like that's not really like cadiaN's ethos in a way. So if he can change who he is, fair play. But unfortunately, I'm a bit cynical in life. I don't expect people to change. I think they sort of stay fairly similar, you know.
Yeah, and he needs to change, right? I think he's in a point in his career where his individual level can't carry him further,
Yes.
right? I think he's shown that he can be a relatively good tier 2, tier 3 AWPer, especially when there's not a lot of pressure. He's actually really good, in my opinion. And those clutch moments we all remember, right? But if you want to bring on a tier 1 level consistently, I don't think cadiaN is the name when you talk about an AWPer, right? So he kind of needs to fill in a place now where he needs to be a real leader in terms of like just being solely focused on his in-game leader capabilities and the social skills, right? Because social skills is a big part of why you would actually work as an IGL.
For sure.
I think many people underestimate why Carry can have so much success. I don't think it's necessarily because he's the greatest mind of all time, and he's like, he probably is, but like I think there's way more qualities to him than people expect. I think he's a very funny guy, and I think he brings the team together in a way where people can actually see a future with him. I think this is one of the strengths. I'm not sure if cadiaN had that same feeling maybe in the start in Liquid, I remember Twist saying that a ridiculous thing that he was like equally good as cadiaN.
I know.
But it just happens, right? You're sitting in practice and you're all having your A game. Like you're playing a lot of deathmatch. Everybody's playing really good. You have those 2010 kind of games. By the way, you play MR30 in practice, right? So you would maybe have a like good scoreline constantly, and then you would just say something like this. And then when you get into reality of stuff, it just happens a little bit different, right?
By the way, that's also why I'm actually worried specifically for cadiaN more than Astralis. Because when I look at this team, I also think in Heroic, even if he ever was doing the dictator thing there, he was like the center of attention. By the way, me and Maui nailed it. He did have main character syndrome. Like, I think famously, the way they lost that game to Game Leech is the worst example ever. Like, he could have just played back and they would have won that round on Inferno. And he wanted to, like, win the round and the map and so that then he could be the one on the camera to, like, stand up like, I was the, I think some of that was true. Well, the problem is there's going to be no main character syndrome in this team because he isn't the main character at all. In fact, by definition, he should be the fifth character. His roles are the worst. He's not even the AWPer anymore. And also, there's another thing. I think a lot of what made cadiaN's style and personality work is actually he was winning a lot of clutches in Tier 1 CS, mate. Like, he would win, like, the big clutch that won you the game. Well, one, I don't think he's going to do that with a rifle. Like, part of that was actually he was pretty good at using the AWP, actually, and, like, setting up the off angles and stuff. And then secondly, when he doesn't have, like, his own big moments, well, what's brilliant about those moments is they sort of justify all the other things you ask people to do. Like, when you're saying about cadiaN's probably the best example ever of getting players to buy in. Because, bro, publicly and privately, you've never heard anyone for the last 5 years be like, cadiaN's a bit shit, like, fragging, though, even though he objectively is. But he has the ultimate buy-in that essentially every player that plays to him is like, it's fine for him to be shit. As long as he does everything else and calls great, I'm fine with that. I feel like cadiaN won't get that pass. I think part of his identity was that he also used to be a fragger and kind of call his own number, as it were,
And the style of cadiaN solely works because he has so many superstars around him, right?
Sure.
Back in the days, he was actually pretty good individually. If people remember, like 2015, 16, he even played the AWPer a little bit for TSM back in the days. So he had individual skills, but nowadays you kind of need your superstars around you. And I think this is what kind of Astralis thought. If maybe we can get Stavn Jabbi to work combined with Device, we have a super strong trio because they worked under his leadership. So now it should work, right? I think this is just like where they do 1 + 1 = 2. I just don't think it's that simple in reality. I do think they're going to be facing a lot more trouble long term. But if we have to take a little bit of positives, I feel like we've generally been shitting on them a little bit. I think it's going to be way better, right? I think you made the point also with why would they do it now? I think it just tells you that the Device is so fed up of being an IGL. He doesn't want to do it anymore. And I also think they're super scared about like what is the mood in the team going to be when they show up for that RMR, right? If he doesn't even believe in himself and he's going to show up to that tournament, and they failed it twice now, or even 3 times, I can't remember. So they really need to qualify this time around. So he doesn't want to have that pressure on him. He just needs to be fragging because he's the only consistent guy on this team where you can always say he's going to be actually delivering a little bit on the fragging side. And of course, cadiaN is going to be helping Stavn Jabbi hopefully find a little bit of form.
By the way, he's actually right. I hadn't even thought that. That's even worse. It's not even just like we're a normal team. We have to qualify to the next major. They actually did fail the last 3 qualifiers in a row. Because remember, it was the config one first where he wasn't available. Then you had the Blast Prize one. Then obviously this most recent one was the super team. So actually, in theory, the stakes are enormous now.
Yeah, and especially I think just the sponsor side of things when they failed at Copenhagen major. I think they all just in the office almost gave up on life, right? I think it was such an important moment, and now they are being given a chance again to go to China where they could potentially qualify. I think their cards is relatively good. Looking at the opposing teams, it's not going to be that difficult, but we've said that before. They lost to Amcal last time, so I mean, it's not going to be that easy.
We'll circle back to the pressure side of it because there is all these different parts that are going to come into play here. But I kind of want to talk about what's happening on the server though, because like we said, cadiaN was the IGLing AWPer. Like that was his role. That was what he did for the AWPing IGL. Now he moves in as the rifler. Bubzkji, how do we feel? I mean, you said it's going to be better, but how does this play out when we actually, when you're looking at the actual games? Do you honestly think that is a move that is going to be a good one?
He's a very average rifler. I mean, that's he's never been the guy who's like, you have some of those IGLs where you give them a M4 and you feel like, okay, he can do stuff like Sui, LXB. I don't feel like they look like bots when they run around with a gun. I feel like cadiaN is kind of those where you kind of reminded me a little bit of Pasha Biceps back in the day, where if he didn't have the AWP, he would look kind of clunky at times. And I do think cadiaN is in that position, and now he's going to be put in a position where he's going to be having a lot of one-on-one duels, like on timings. I just imagine right now that bid on Na'Vi is just gonna search Ancient A, just gonna like sidestep this guy and find him at one point. Like, I just don't see cadiaN putting in that pressure. You know, it's so hard for other teams if you have that safe net of having a guy on the opposing side where you can like do those gamble stacks. That's why I think it worked with HooXi and Test, right? It's because HooXi could hold over at the A side, and then you could do like your 4-man stack and push or do whatever the fuck you wanted. But at this point, I feel like it's a little bit different.
I have to say, I do immediately think that's also where reality will finally hit cadiaN of what this role is like. Is I want to see when they play, because obviously they weren't playing it that long. I want to see him play like a Bianca Mirage or something. Like, let's see you like load that up and know that is just your life now, mate. That's not like a one-off. That is just life, living that life where the 4 people come in and shoot your head instantly. Yeah, great. Enjoy that.
Yeah, imagine you have cadiaN and you have Device, Jabbi, and Stavn fighting in mid, so you all yourself, and then you see just bit slowly searching you, and you just go, oh, guys, B is open, retake, you gotta save. Like, he's just gonna be forced to play in a certain ways, and of course, teams are abusing this. I remember playing with Hunden, like we were bombarded by people trying to, we just gotta kill Hunden. Are they gonna play around this? Maybe in the start, right? I think it's going to be dependent on how much people focus on it, especially from anti-strat and so on. They'll find out in the first couple of games if people are trying to abuse Mr. cadiaN.
Well, this is the thing, right? So the cadiaN piece changes, but now because of that, there is another piece that changes as well, because staehr is going to have to change his roles in the game. How does that play out, Bubzkji? I mean, is there actually, before you answer that question, I'm curious, because there was this whole conversation when Mulbs came into G2 that they were going to be changing his roles and it wasn't going to work. And then obviously that wasn't the case and Mulbs was fantastic. From a player perspective, I mean, how much of that plays into your mind? Do you feel uncomfortable when you're asked to change roles?
I mean, for the reason why it works for Mulbs is just because he's so incredibly gifted mechanically, right? You can put him on a spot and he'll just win those 50-50 duels. cadiaN is a guy who kind of needs to move a little bit to get his plays working, right? He needs to go through a smoke, he needs to find a time with a flash or anything, and you're just not going to be given those opportunities, especially on the anchor roles. So on the CT side, I'm really worried. On the T side, I'm very positive. I think it's going to be way better than before. I think cadiaN will do the mid control together with the other guys, and it's going to be fine. I think he's very okay with Device being the guy who searched for him because he knows how to dictate AWP, right? I think that's going to be one of his actually strengths within this lineup is that he finally has a good AWPer to work with that can make him move in certain directions wherever he wants him. But on CT,
by the way, that's why I say, though, I actually think not only should he not do it, I think he can't do the dictator role and think this is like his team and he can call like heroic. Because, bro, like, first of all, that won't work anyway because Device isn't going to let you micro him. And also, why would you? He's probably the best IGL, best AWPer ever at not needing the IGL to tell him what to do and already, like, basically being a secondary caller. I even think, by the way, that's why the relationship between them is so key for me. Like, I hope actually they can get along on a personal level. Because I also assume if Device did this role of being IGL, that implies to me maybe he thought like his calls as an AWPer was like a secondary caller or something. He thought he's had some input in the structure. So he could go back to doing that. He could take that part of the burden off cadiaN to some degree, but that's going to require them both being on the same page and agreeing how they're going to play it. And again, like you can't just be one guy coming up with everything from the spawn. It's got to be a real system here. Also, what the fuck does Rugger do if there's no actual playbook? Like, well, he just sat there like, good job, guys. Get some kills. Like, he has to have a job too. I'm sure he was brought in to be a tactical coach.
So there was a lot of so Device wasn't there at the time, but there was obviously that weird Astralis heroic head bashing that went on. There was rumors of shouting and jumping over tables at breakfasts at Pro League. And there was a lot of, I would say, bad blood. And it was always a thing when the Danish derby happened, right, Bubzkji? Like, you knew that there was going to be a thing. Yeah, and it was insane. And the thing is, though, is for me, that was always, I wouldn't say it was heroic versus Astralis. It always felt like it was cadiaN up against Astralis. That was always the thing. So for me, the changeover now to see him in that shirt kind of had me going, because I worry then about the personal relationships behind the scene. Because your friends have been beefing with him for so long, you know, like your old teammates have always had an issue. I can't imagine Stavn Jabbi had nice things to say when they got to Astralis. So how do you get all of that gone? I mean, do you think that's going to even play a factor?
I mean, there's been a rich history between those two teams, especially.
A
I think it
rich
started
history. I like that.
I think it started between when I actually joined Astralis, and then Heroic was actually coming through the ranks, and we were in that online period. We were kind of both doing well, and some periods they were doing really well, and then we beat them at Cologne, and then after we beat them at Cologne, the whole Hunden thing evolved.
The cheating thing, yeah,
I
sure.
still remember we were in that Corona hotel down at Cologne where we were just sitting in our individual rooms, and then all of a sudden we just get a call from ESL and just like, hey, you're being not sued, but you're under people are like Heroic are claiming that Hunden shared documents with you and blah blah blah. So we just sat there and like, what the fuck is going on? Is that the reaction to us losing and so on, or winning? But obviously we got cleared and never anything happened. I think the thing that happened back then is that Hunden actually shared like tactics with the academy roster because he wanted the academy roster to get up and running, and then he would kick like Sonic later, and so it was a fucking shit
Something
show.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was a fucking shit show. But yeah, it started back then, and I think the bad blood kind of spilled on there. And I think cadiaN kind of took advantage of that. He wanted that to be like you call it main character. I agree with that as a little bit. He wanted to be the evil guy in that Danish derby. He wanted to be the guy who always made fun of Astralis.
Yeah, the wrestling heel. He wanted to be sort of the guy who you were allowed to boo against, but in a good way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that suited him quite well. Now he's going to be fully different, right? He's going to be the happy, smiling IGL who's going to be always positive, and he's going to be always supporting his teammates and not going to be talking so highly of himself, because he's not going to be the one who's going to carry the roster, right?
Okay.
It's going to be the Vice, it's going to be Stavn, it's going to be Jabbi. He's going to be praising those guys in the interviews, hopefully, because he also needs to change personally. I think you've said it yourself. He needs a little bit of a reflection of what went wrong in his past teams, or especially in Liquid, right? I think also it was doomed to go wrong from the start. But on a personal side, he's in a way different situation now. Also, his stock is way lower, so he can't come in with the same big dick energy, and he kind of has to tone it down a little bit. And I think it's going to be a little bit more healthy for him.
Okay. That was a secret reference for you there, Sam, that thing at the end about the energy. But yeah, don't worry about it. You know, just the rumour about cadiaN, apparently. So, no, the other thing is, the thing I find most jarring is the idea that, like, surely if there was any person about 2 weeks ago who hated cadiaN the most, it was every 14-year-old Astralis fan. Like, they were all the people in the Royal Arena probably like, fuck you, cadiaN. Like, now they have to be like, what the hell? Now I love cadiaN. Like, I don't know how that's going to work. Although, by the way, to be fair, he is charismatic. He'll win them over, I've no doubt. He'll say the right thing in Danish in the crowd or something, and everyone will get going and get riled up. And by the way, here's a great point to make as well. Because the first event is Blast Fall, well, remember that was what happened when they first brought in Config and Blame F, and because that was the event where they went mental and smurfed. I think if they were to hit the ground running at Blast Fall, the Danish fans would be completely on their side. Like, they could win them over really quickly. So there is that opportunity. Then secondly, the joke is, right, you could do the prequel meme for this, couldn't you? Because obviously in this scenario, you're supposed to go to cadiaN and go, cadiaN, you were supposed to destroy Astralis, not join them. And then he could go, yeah, but this is actually how I'm going to destroy them, though. So there's my cadiaN. Yeah, exactly. There's my way to destroy it. Exactly. Take it down from inside. Lastly, though, I actually have one point on that line, though. I want to get your take on this, Bubzkji. Because one thing I have always thought is, I agree with her. I don't ever think personally it was actually heroic against Astralis, except for the cheating thing and the coach bug and all that. I always got the feeling it was cadiaN against Astralis. And by the way, it even seems like it was just cadiaN against Glaive if you actually look into the behind the scenes. Yeah. And it was mainly the idea. I don't even think it was about it was mainly that one cadiaN tried to stimulate that trash talk. I mean, famously even said it, you know, this game's going to be for all the bragging rights and all that. And then two, I actually get the feeling it was just competitive rivalry. Like, at the time, Heroic was the top dog. They were better than Astralis. cadiaN was the IGL. Glaive was the other IGL. There's that aspect. But this is one thing that's why I'm surprised they've reformed with him. Because I also got the vibe personally that one thing people got sick of in Heroic at the end was the fact that, like, they were always the villain, but the rest of the players never said anything. Like, if I'm Shush, you're just a quiet guy who turns up, puts on your hard hat, does your job with like a drill, and then when you leave, everyone tells you to kill yourself because cadiaN's riled all the crowd up and done all this to him. Like, in that moment, I get the feeling if you're Shush, you're like, I just want to kind of be like the underdog, bro. And I actually don't want all this pressure. Like, cadiaN obviously loved it, by the way. He was like getting off on it. Like, I'd see why for him that works as fuel. I always got worried about some of the others. Like, does it crush their morale, or is it too much pressure? I don't know if they all vibed with that, dude. What do you think?
I agree. It wasn't. I think the four other of us didn't really have a problem with Heroic. Of course, we wanted to win. It was like competitive rivalry, right? It's the Manchester United versus Liverpool kind of thing in Denmark. But I think on a personal level, Glaive and Glaive didn't like each other at all. I think it was like this famous thing around the breakfast buffet or something where they had like conversation with each other, right?
Yeah.
Where they couldn't really control each other. I mean, I think that was the only time I've ever seen like anything happen more like
that's pretty rock and roll, actually, like having a fight over a breakfast buffet.
Yeah,
So that's pretty
like
cool, actually. Yeah,
we had a joke about it in the Danish scene, like, oh, fucking cadiaN took the last piece of bacon, and then Glaive like would come up and like, fuck you doing, mate? Exactly. But yeah, I don't think there was anything from the other side. I think what your point is that they maybe got forced into feeling this way about it. Like he built an aura around this team because his presence was solely so strong, right? And I don't think all the other players bought into it. I think Stavn did in some interviews. I also think he was a little bit not edgy, but I think a guy like Jabbi and Tezes, they didn't know what the fuck they went into, right? I think they just played and they all of a sudden became a part of this evil villain team. So I don't think many people had an issue in Astralis with them joining, but I do think, as you said, cadiaN is on another level.
So here's the thing though with Astralis, because it's always been Danish Counter-Strike, right? And you touched on this way earlier, both of you did, but it's something we have to bring back. If this doesn't work, they're starting to run out of options. Like what? I mean, okay, so HooXi's still around. We know that HooXi's hanging around there, but we're in this position where now what happens? Because they need to stay full Danish, but they're going through a lot of those players, Bubzkji. Will they have to be forced to go international?
I mean, this is the last straw, right? I think this is the issue for me, that they didn't pick up HooXi, because then you could actually see that there was a chance to actually remove one guy or another, because again, it feels like they're experimenting. I do feel actually the next step is to go international if they fail this one, because they can't get matches, right? Who the fuck do we else get? I don't think HooXi is going to be relevant the next time they're going to be doing roster changes. HooXi probably join some other team like Fnatic or wherever he goes in a couple of months, right? So at this point, are they going to be throwing out a mega buyout for some relevant player that they can get? Probably not. So I'm not sure where it brings them. I think they've tried to play international, some of the players before, staehr obviously, in Sprout, Device in NIP, or I'm not sure actually NIP spoke Swedish, but they've tried a little bit of everything. But yeah, it does force them into an awkward position, right? Because this is do or die for them, specifically with cadiaN. I don't think they are. The organization is going to be having a very hard time to actually do something where they can actually put on impact within the roster in Danish scene, because there isn't the next big talent, right? There is a couple of ones. Zira is one good, Siphon is still good, but it's just not players you're going to be like, okay, we need that guy to make us better.
Thorin, what happens then? Because let's be fair, Astralis is all in on Counter-Strike, and their biggest selling point is that it's Danish CS. I know what in Denmark they actually transcend just esports. Like there's a lot of like general public who know Astralis. Now, if you don't have an all Danish lineup, that becomes problematic, right? The whole idea that you're selling to your sponsors and your investors is gone. Is this?
I mean, for me, it's like a double whammy.
I was going to say, cadiaN is actually, he could be the complete destruction of Astralis from the inside.
Because think about it, right? The only two reasons right now, aside from money, and there's other companies that have money, by the way, aside from money, the only reason right now to join Astralis, because they're not currently like a championship team, they don't have Zonic, they don't have any of the traditional stuff that made them the old Astralis. That was amazing. That used to be the best reason to join before. That's why famously it was very prestigious to join Astralis. Like it was a big deal that Config didn't get to join. So actually back then, that was the reason you joined. It was the best org you could join. In the modern day, there's two reasons left. One is if you're Danish, because it's an all Danish lineup. So if that's gone, that's already, by the way, you're going to get way less players as well. Because one thing I always find bizarre about this, because I haven't been in Astralis, is what sort of fucking advanced mesmerism / voodoo magic do they do on Danish people, where every Danish person, even the ones in this case fucked over by Astralis, at the end are like, but I must join Astralis. Like that's not going to exist for other people. Other people don't have that same thing. And then lastly, the other reason to join now is Device. But again, he is 29 years old, and it's actually, we assume, especially with the injury things he's had over his career, he might retire any day. If he just decides one day, I'm done, I don't see a future, and we're not going to get to the top. If he retires, all of a sudden, what team are you joining even at that point in time? And then lastly, I'll just say this. I actually think of all the teams out there, I actually think the same with HooXi. I think it's a real shame if a Danish team ever has to go international. Because for me, when I've looked at all the different styles of play and styles of comming and structure, the two scenes that should never change international if they can are the German and Danish scene, because these are countries that want to have structure. And as Bubzkji said earlier, it's the way that Janko once described it in an interview where he was trying to like play defense for how Nico IGL'd, because I thought Nico was an overrated IGL back in phase, right? And Janko said, well, the point was, if you actually broke down the demo and you had the com, he made the right call, but because he had to do it in English and two people in second language English, he said basically the right call 1 second late becomes the wrong call. And that is what I would say about a team, like if you think historically about how teams like Heroic played, where they had instant rotations the second time cadiaN called something. Obviously, Astralis was probably the most legendary tactical team of all time. I don't think you can just do the exact same style and calls and tactics, but in English with everyone speaking second language English and having one guy from Latvia and one guy from Hungary and one guy from Ukraine and one guy. I don't think that works to the same degree. I actually think, I always say this, I almost think the genius of what Carrigan's done in this second part of his career is he's made everyone think, oh, if you just have a good IGL, you can just go international. It's like, bro, even he doesn't play as tactical as he used to with TSM. Even he makes it more like a bit loose and he just tries to do the sick mid-round. And also, as Bubzkji said, he doesn't just have normal players. He doesn't have Bro and staehr. He has like the best players in the world in all those roles who can sort of take agency themselves. So I actually think if you end up going international, I'm getting really bad vibes of like, think about NIP, Fnatic. These teams are all in the scene. And if they get the right line, maybe Fnatic's about to do it. Maybe they can make a top 10 run. But nobody thinks of these teams as like the best orgs. And they've lost all that power of like, think about if you were Swedish, you were desperate to get into an NIP and Fnatic. Now it doesn't even matter. Now you can go play wherever you want. So I think it would actually, in a way, it would be like cadiaN destroyed Astralis if they just never go Danish again after this.
I think many Danish players put on value being in a social aspect where they really enjoy being together, right? I think this has been the main point for many Danish players throughout the years, that they want to actually play with Danish people because they can have a little bit more fun. We have a way more different approach about the work-life balance. I think if you play with CIS players or like some people from the East, they don't really care if they have to play 20 hours a day or anything. But in Denmark, people are kind of like, yeah, let's just practice enough and then let's make sure we are in a good mood and all these sort of things, which I think works to some extent. But Astralis, the reason why they've always been the voodoo magic is because they've spent the most money, right? The only other team who ever spent as much as them was North, but those were driven by clowns. Fucking clowns. Like the guys who ran North must be jailed for like fraud or anything. Like it's so crazy what they did with that amount of money. I think we faced the issue back in Mad Lions, right? I think we wanted to sign players and wanted to keep the Danish core, but the organization didn't want to invest money in it because they knew Astralis was at the bottom of the food chain, right? So their plan all along was to go international so they could control the market a little bit better, because they knew that they would always leave for Astralis, and that's just the reality of it. And that just gives you a certain position. But if you lose that, I don't think Astralis is in any place where you're kind of be like, oh, that's the team I want to join, right? They're going to be the NIP. They're going to be the Fnatic. They're going to be the big, right? They're going to be a team you only join if they're going to give you a lot of money.
So the question is, Bubzkji, Thorin, long term, is this Astralis lineup the lineup that is going to make a deep major run as it stands currently? If you think about, and let me set the scene for you, cadiaN has been burnt. Obviously, maybe flew a little bit too close to the sun with Heroic, got kicked the way he did, felt betrayed by his teammates, went to Liquid, had a very similar experience where no one kind of bought into his system, quote unquote. So maybe humbled slightly. Maybe he comes into Astralis having learned that lesson. I'm trying to make this work so that it doesn't just sound like
all I'm going to say is you met him not that long ago, Sam. Did he seem humbled in that moment? Did he not just still seem like cadiaN? You know, I feel like, does he ever really get beyond a certain threat? Surely part of being cadiaN is you're always cadiaN. You know what I mean? You've got to have self-belief in yourself to be the guy he is. If you weren't, by the way, you'd have been cast aside years ago before you ever made it to the top. In a way, I don't feel like cadiaN's going to come in like totally chill, is he? Surely? Isn't he going to be cadiaN still?
I will say this about working with cadiaN. Like, I thought, though, the first thing is he's probably going to kill me for saying this. I actually think cadiaN cares a lot more about what people think than he lets on. Like, there was a few times where we did the desk. I was a bitch. Like, I threw some really shit lines at him. He threw back. He took it just as well as I could give it. But then straight afterwards, he'd always come up and be like, I didn't upset you, right? Did I go too far? Like, he was actually concerned.
Sure.
And I was kind of
I guess the problem is he didn't do that with bloody twists in your Kendall. Maybe if he'd gone, oh, sorry, I was upsetting you with that call. You know, no, I fucking put it on the spot. See, if you'd have done that, cadiaN, maybe it'd all be fixed. You know, it would have been good.
And I felt really shit because I was sitting there being like, dude, I've just been going so hard at the fact that you just got kicked out of your team. Like you have one bit of banter back, and you're concerned that you may have.
You did also reference that about 10 times during that one event. The fact that he'd been kicked out the team.
Yeah, it was just fun.
Ridiculous. So it was ridiculous that he was supposed to do the late games against Liquid, right? We had two pairs that could do either game. And I just see on the schedule,
Liquid.
Yeah, Liquid just dominating Bubzkji. And what do you have to say about that one?
Yeah. I mean, and he was like in that regard, but there is a cockiness to him. There is a confidence to him, but I do think that he does actually care about, he does try and uplift. And there was one other thing that cadiaN did. I mean, there was we had a really long day. It was ridiculously long. And obviously James Banks starts early in the morning. And I think he'd been
story. Come on, hit me with it.
You know what he did? He went off and he was like, guys, why is James still here? Like, it's been such a long day. And we were all like, well, that's James's job. And
now he sounds fake. Now he sounds too good, like Gandhi or something. Oh, look at this guy over here. This poor guy as well. You made it sound like, I thought you were going to say the story was something mental, like Banks was sleeping, and like in a Hollywood movie, cadiaN like put his jacket over him like a blanket, like, there, sleep, Banks, sleep. There you go. Good night, Banks. What's this story? I know.
Like a fucking union leader.
I know.
Yeah, he did lead. He did go and ask them if Banks could go home. He said we would do the interviews on the desk. And like, I thought that was really sweet. On the other hand, he also he did spend a considerable amount of time trying to get me to help him to like play tricks on Banks. So there was that as well. So it's two ways. But I think the point I'm trying to say is, I think that the cocky, confident cadiaN people see where they're like, fuck, that guy is such an asshole, is just it's a persona. I think he does it to try to rile up his team. But I'm hoping that maybe he's also realized that maybe in his whole, I wasn't in the team, but from what I've heard, he was like pretty difficult to work with. It was his way or the highway. Maybe he's learned that he needs to be a little bit more, I don't know, like susceptible to listening to other people's thoughts. And I feel like a device is not going to put up with his shit. So like, if he comes in like that, does this lineup work? But I mean, and I suppose the other question, Bubzkji, you've known these guys, you've played with them. Can he actually change is the question. Because it's one thing to be an analyst on the desk. It's a whole other thing when you're playing competitive Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I think it's different, right? I think he was never, I think he's always been a little bit cocky. I think everybody he's had a little bit of a unique kind of sentiment around him in the Danish scene. I think I remember you, Thorin, actually mentioning at one point there was like a Facebook group that was like, fuck cadiaN at the start of CSGO and TSS, and I think that resembles.
And the meme was everyone was in it except cadiaN was like the joke people made to me.
Yeah, it was like a fucked up joke, right? And I think this resembles a little bit of what he is as a character, right? He either divides people or you make him like him. And I think he's gotten to a point in his career where after Heroic, he probably felt a little bit invincible. I think he got a lot of offers. I just by my imagination, he surely had like 2 or 3 like solid top 10 team offers where he could go in and play. He chose Team Liquid, and now his stock is on a whole different level. I think he's smart enough as an individual to realize that he's not in the same position anymore, right? He needs to realize, okay, now I'm playing with the superstars in form of device. Stavn Jabbi don't have my back to the same extent. The org doesn't trust me as much as Heroic did. I need to come in with a little different approach. And I think it's going to be helping them long, or at least short term. Long term, if they keep doing good, I maybe suggest the same problems is going to happen. But for the short term, I don't really think it's going to be an issue with his quote unquote ego. And just to round it off, I think we've said a lot of negative stuff. I do actually think this is going to be better than what it was before because it was so miserable on the T side. I think we generally just spoke about all the negatives, but I do think it's going to be better for Heroic, for Astralis. This is almost Heroic, by the way.
It basically is at this point, isn't it? By the way, that's also what kills me about this move. It's actually an example a bit like when they made the Danish super team at the original one. I actually also thought these roles don't make any sense. Like, how blameF and Stavn going to coexist? And also, is blameF going to IGL divide? You know, like all these things didn't make sense to me. But the point is, just like that dude, I actually wanted it to work. What people don't know is I actually thought cadiaN and Heroic did a really good job IGL, and he looked fucking awesome. That team was one of the most fun to watch on the T side. And the way they all like everyone surely knows that team is a bit like Na'Vi now. Individually, those players probably weren't actually the best players in the world, but together they looked like it. Like this system made the players better. I actually think that's what people like Stavn found out. It's like they're not some FaZe Clan player. They're a star within a certain system where they get comfort and where they get things done the way they want it to be done. So I would like this move to work. It's just the problem is, I think there's too many factors here for people to consider. I think people are just doing like, right, can Stavn and cadiaN get along? If yes, right, continue. Okay, continue. But that's gate one. Right, can device and cadiaN get, let's say, okay, get past. But even once you get past all that, you still do arrive at like cadiaN has to be able to IGL while not AWPing and while doing a role he's never done before. If he can do it, brilliant. It's a bit like when Device took IGL. What did I tell you, Sam? I told you it shouldn't work in theory to be a star AWPer and be an IGL. So if he can do it, maybe he is the one guy, is Device, who can just revolutionize Counter-Strike and do it. But I'm sorry, I'm probably skeptical it'll work, and it didn't work in the long run. So I just worry about that aspect. Is like, if this really was, what's funny is, in a fucked up way, look, I wouldn't want Device not to IGL, but I'd have rather actually done just like the real heroic lineup again, Bubzkji. Like, because I also think that to myself. I think if I look at Astralis right now, we actually are back in like 2007, and players are just being noobs again. Where, if you don't know, guys, back in the day when there were no roles and there was no way of talking about the game that way, teams, especially Swedish teams, by the way, used to just sign all the strikers in the analogy of a football game. And the joke is, even your like Lurker was a striker and your support was a striker and your empty player, and they just kept signing star players because the logic was eventually we're going to shoot everyone in the head, right? I almost get the feeling the mistake they've made in Astralis is you signed all these star players, but Shush and Tessas were the role players, and they're still in bloody heroic. Like, why are they the ones that we haven't brought over? Because that's the part that's craziest to me. I feel like cadiaN and the core of heroic never understood what those other guys were doing. Like, those guys were never the stars. Obviously, they were complementary pieces. But I think you've even seen it in heroic when they didn't have Dexter. Like, they're pretty good complementary pieces, though. Like, they're clearly like super sacrificial, do everything for the team. Like, I think that's what you were missing with these players.
But I think that is also the positive, right? You swap basically the entire team for the likes of Device. And I think if Device can just get somewhat of a level that we've seen earlier, then it's a massive upgrade, right? Then
how good does he have to be, do you think? Does he have to be better than he was before?
Yeah, he has to be on like a top. He has to hit for like a top 6.
Has to be a HLTV player,
yeah, top,
right?
Yeah, top 5, top 6.
Yeah.
If they want to go like far into playoffs, he has to be that. And I think this is also the reason why he would swap off the IGL role. Maybe he knows he has two good years left in him. Considering what we've seen earlier, maybe he has a little bit more, maybe he has a little bit less, I don't know. But for my money, I think we're going to be seeing Device still with 2 amount of good years in him. And I think from that point, I think he just really wants to get the best out of himself, right? And he realized maybe cadiaN can help him do that. I think also HooXi could have done that, but I do think Stavn Jabbi maybe talked him over and said this guy is actually the real deal.
So I mean, to wrap this all up, let's all put our heads on the chopping block. Does Astralis finally qualify for the next major, Bubzkji?
They need to. Like, if they fail this, I'm not even sure they can be profitable or they can even run the fucking team at this point. They need to qualify. Of course, the players is not going to be told that by the organization. By the way, guys, if we're not going to make it, your contracts are up.
You're all out.
Yeah, exactly. They know that they need to qualify also for their own sake, right? Their own ego. Like, many of these players are top players. They want to be at the major as bare minimum. And now they failed 3 in a row, at least some of them, right? So I think they're at a point where it's do or die.
I think it would be especially crazy for Device, because remember, before Device willingly took himself out of their starting lineup in NIP, he had that famous streak where he didn't just make all the majors. He used to make the playoffs of every major. That was he actually had the streak of every single one. And then when he came to Astralis, they've never made a major again. It's actually like super brutal. So I actually do feel like if you're someone like Device, your identity is being at majors and being like a player who can compete and win them. So I think they do make it, Sam. If I had to guess, I would predict they do. I think like the team on paper still looks good enough. Also, you look at the team and you assume, what was the point in this move at all if it doesn't mean Device plays better with the AWP and Stavn plays better with the rifle? And if those 2 players play better, you're going to have a chance. You're going to be decent at least. The problem obviously is, can they do anything at the major? I don't think so, but I think they can qualify.
It's also important to just highlight that the lineup in the last 6 months, it's not been great, but it's not been terrible either. It's not Fnatic, it's not NIP, it's not anything where we've just seen a trend where they're not even able to play. Like, they made a couple of playoffs, they played some decent games, right? They had that close BO3 against Vitality. They were not a top team, but they were at least like a top 8 team, right, on a consistent basis. I just think they see so much more value in this lineup and more potential that they feel like at least we can get a trophy within a year, and I don't think they was expecting that with that core of lineup they had before.
Yeah, I'll just say it. I think that they'll make the major. I don't think they'll do a deep run. And I think the whole thing will implode early next year. And we'll see a bunch of changes. There we go. Just said it all. The good thing, though, the very big positive is that we brought the 2 of you together. So, cadiaN, thank you very much for that. Doing the baby Jesus.
All right, you thank you. Okay, I see you. Okay, forget it. Okay.
cadiaN did it.
Yeah,
so,
technically.
Thanks, gents. Yeah. Let us know in the comments what you think of the cadiaN move. And we'll see you for the next episode.